Hello, everybody. I'm sorry I'm not with you. Assalamu alaikum. By way of introduction, I'm Doug Stone. I'm a retired Marine general. Initially, after 9/11, I was flown to be the senior military leadership on the ground in Islamabad. Later came back and developed all of the cultural sensitive training for all the Marines going to either Afghanistan or Iraq. America was, I think, by its own admission, failing in its mission in Iraq. So I was selected as one of the few to go back with General Petraeus, hand-selected by him to take on the challenge of interrogation and specifically detention. What I found in detention were extremist members of the detention. They called themselves imams, were actively soliciting, recruiting, training, intimidating members of the camp, the detainees. How do you counter, in the minds of detainees, the extremist perspective that their detainee imam is giving them? What we decided to do was figure out who could read and who couldn't. Turns out, in this population, a huge number could not read. So we simply put a reading program together, which they responded to in an unbelievable manner. Really came up to speed in terms of how to read very quickly. And then we began to recruit in from outside of Iraq, because there were nobody that we could recruit inside Iraq, imams from many different countries. They were able to work together as teams, and now with an educated base, they developed ultimately a book about civics. A book about Muslim civics. It was Quranically based, and they used that to just talk about the religion and its wonderful attributes and its perspective on life. What we found were detainees wanted to learn about their own religion. When they learned about their own religion, they became more open-minded, not close-minded. And what did we do with that? We felt confident enough that we released them. And we released massive numbers. During my period of time, I released more than had been brought in during the period of time before me. You would say, whoa, my goodness, does that mean they all returned to the fight? The answer is no. In fact, General Petraeus was going to shut down the program. I told him I can do it with less than 1% returning to the fight. He said, if you have 2%, I'm going to shut you down. We never even approached one. And pretty soon, they began to challenge their own leadership on the inside. And once that challenge happened, we isolated those people out of the program, and as if a cool spring breeze happened on a hot day, the whole place changed. Islamophobia is a blind bias, without thought, to an orientation that causes fear amongst themselves, fear in their family. And you have individuals who practice Islamophobia perspectives. They can be in positions of leadership in law enforcement. They can be in the political world. They are convinced by calling an enemy, they are making it more secure. And what I promise you is happening is just the opposite. They're making us less secure.
How are they making us less secure?
They're making us less secure because they create an animosity. They cause many Muslims and non-Muslims to polarize, and the polarization itself causes further polarization, causes further defranchisement, causes further policies to be enacted that actually create a security threat, create a threat against themselves. So Islamophobia is just the opposite of creating security. It is creating insecurity. It is creating threat. It is creating polarization in the society where it's not necessary. Now, that does not mean that there aren't violent extremists who are Muslim, period. No question about it. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. But they are not in the majority, and they threaten Muslims geographically and statistically more than they threaten non-Muslims. I think the answer is to come back to a kind of a core value. It doesn't take a lot of work in any community to find individuals who do not subscribe to Islamophobic views, may be concerned about the risk of extremism, absolutely, but they do not subscribe to Islamophobia. Those individuals can play a role in talking and in educating. So education is a really critical role. Another really critical role is an issue of trust. I think if I trusted the individual in my community who had a very strong Islamophobic, I probably would follow that perspective because I trust them. So the question becomes, what are the role models? And what are the attributes of individuals? And how do you know them? How do you recognize them for individuals who you ought to trust, at least trusting on this very important topic of, that spawns the whole Islamophobic phenomena? Now, Abdelkader is the role model that comes to mind given the conference. The way he problem solved, the way that he addressed things. He became, and has become, I think, in the past and in the present, a partner, a wise man, somebody who you can trust. So the reason that the emirs we're studying is in part because of all the great things he did. Absolutely. It's a wonderful history. But I think it's even more important to recognize that there are fundamental, very visceral attributes that he practiced past tense and by bringing him forward in the present that are role models for you and I. They are role models for educators. They are role models for professionals. They're role models for somebody who you can trust. And role models are critical to changing because people respect role models. So role models, educators, educated thought, experiences, those are all valuable in fighting Islamophobia. Islamophobia will never be addressed without active participation from the Muslim faith itself, and by leaders, many of whom I'm sure are listening to this discussion today. Without you, there will not be an improvement. You can pick any role model you like. I like the Emir, so do others, but find your own. Find the one that works, but put an oar in the water or the boat won't go forward. Thank you.